By far, this is the best Masterbuilt gravity fed that I have ran to date. But on high temp cooks, you better make sure this pit is clean or you're gonna have a grease fire. Look at those flames! The Masterbuilt Gravity Series XT digital controlled charcoal grill and smoker is a very versatile Wi-Fi controlled charcoal grill that you can low and slow and even crank it up to 700 degrees and get a fantastic sear. It features the gravity fed system which automatically feeds the charcoal in the hopper to maintain consistent temperatures without monitoring. Yay! No more having to sit there and adjust any vents. When it came to the unboxing, the first thing that I noticed is that the box, it's huge, which typically means that the pit is pretty much assembled. Now in this case, well, it's kind of true, but in reality, this is a pretty big pit. I mean, look, I'm over 6 foot tall and it's coming up to my man boob. The assembly, it's pretty straightforward, but it does involve a decent amount of steps to put it together. It took the boys a little over an hour and a half to assemble the XT, so if you look at the size and the time, I'd call that pretty much average. For the initial startup, right out of the gate, I ran into a little bit of a snag. After I plugged in the XT and hit the controller button, I didn't get any power. After inspecting and seeing that both of the wire connections were nice and snug, I still couldn't get any power off the controller. So I simply just bypassed the jumper that runs underneath the XT and then plugged it directly into the controller and bam, I got power. I'm sure that's a very rare issue, but I decided to share this just in case you also have a defective jumper wire. For the initial startup, you're actually doing what I like to call a burn off. And that's just simply burning off any of the grease or the debris from the manufacturing process. And Masterbuilt's official procedure is simply run it at 250 degrees for 60 minutes, then another 30 minutes at 400 degrees, and then shut it off and let it cool down completely. And then repeat the process at 350 degrees for another 30 minutes. I ended up skipping that final run because there isn't any cast iron that I needed to season up in this pit. And because I already had a hot pit, it was time to do up some Vienna sausages. And I did some Nathan's because they're pretty darn good too. I mean, in my book, you might be a little strange if you don't like a good old-fashioned beef hot dog. Now here's a little lighting tip to get your XT actually started. Because you only have 10 minutes to get the temp up to 150 degrees. So it is important that you actually leave like both the hopper lid and the ash bucket lid open so you can get some direct airflow after you've lit any of your starters. Now on hoppers this size, I actually use 2 tumbleweeds, so I'm guaranteed that this pit is gonna light up. After the starters are well lit, I open up the shutdown vent so the air from the hopper will flow into the chamber. And then I let that run for about 2 minutes before I turn on my controller and set my temperature. Then just simply close up the ash door and the hopper lid. And then your fan will kick into gear, and most likely you will not run into that air and have to completely shut down, unplug, and start over. During the burn off, I connected the Wi-Fi effortlessly. Now, it helped that I already have the app preloaded on my cell phone. So all I had to do is press the connect button on the controller and it linked up immediately. Now I did get a firmware update on my controller, but I didn't mess with that until I was completed with the burn off. And that process didn't even take 5 minutes and it was completely updated. When it comes to actual grading of the Masterbuilt app, I give it above average. I like that it has a graph and it's pretty simple to use. It even has some recipes in there if you want to follow along with them. Now for my Optimricer temperature tests, I only ended up doing 1. I didn't do how long it takes to get up to the maximum temperature of 700 degrees test because there's a few variables that are involved when you're actually starting to just light it up. But I can tell you when I cooked some ribeye steaks at 700 degrees, it took the XT right around 30 minutes to reach that temperature. But the one temperature test that is a must is I wanted to see if there was a lot of temperature difference between left and right inside the chamber. I placed the probes pretty evenly across the bottom grate and set the temperature at 275 degrees. Now at first, once it reached 275 degrees, I had an actual 200-degree hotter difference on the left-hand side. But after the XT started to stabilize, there was only a difference of about 20 degrees from left to right. Then after a 10-minute preheat, it held at about 10 to 20 degrees. The center was slightly hotter and the right was slightly cooler, but if you take the temperatures and put them together, they average 275 degrees. And that is very impressive considering that this is a charcoal pit. I mean, I wasn't expecting it to be that close, especially with that big open design chamber with no like heat deflector. So that U-shape manifold is doing its job. I have heard from a couple of my friends that the XT doesn't preheat as fast as some of the older models from Masterbuilt. But I'm going to tell you from my experience on the 560 to the XT, I am certainly getting a much more even cooking chamber than I did on that unit. Now it comes to the fun test, actually cooking on the XT. And because I already had it preheated to 275 degrees, it was time to do up some St. Louis ribs. Now when you're cooking low and slow with charcoal, you're actually not going to produce a tremendous amount of smoke. So it's a great time to go ahead and throw in some wood chunks. Now you can either sporadically place them throughout the hopper while you're filling it up with charcoal, or you can do my preferred method, and that's just simply throwing a couple wood chunks into the ash bucket. Then once some ash starts to sprinkle on top of that wood chunk, you're going to develop some really good smoke. So for the smoke level rating that you want to give it, well, that's really up to you. It just depends on how much wood you're going to want to burn along with that charcoal. So you can produce kind of an offset type of flavor to any type of barbecue that you're cooking. Now for these ribs, I actually used cherry wood, and these turned out perfect. They were done in about 4.5 hours. On both of these racks, I had some dynamite color, and of course with some nice juicy bite off the bone doneness. My next cook, I did up 2 spatchcock chickens, and I also used cherry wood on those yardbirds to give them a good old smoky boost. One thing you have to know when you're running the XT is that you need to stop the fan on the controller when you're opening up the lid, because you're going to end up getting a big temperature spike, and you're also going to notice some sparks flying inside that chamber. I did end up rotating these birds once during this cook, but I was super impressed how they ended up finishing only a couple minutes apart. They were only 2 degrees off from each other, and when I checked with my handheld probe to the actual Masterbuilt probe that they send you, those temps were pretty much spot on. The only weird thing that I noticed during that cook is when I wanted to set some actual doneness temperatures on the app. Well, it gives me poultry and a whole chicken, but the doneness had some really weird settings. It only has from rare to well done, and I actually want my chicken breast to be at 162, because after it rests for a few minutes, it's going to carry over to 165. So I think there has to be some type of update to it, but for now, I'm just using the custom setting mode. But on that mode, you're also stuck in 5-degree increments, so I can't pick 162. I had to either pick 160 or 165. For my next cook, I was going back to the low and slow method. I did up some big old beef plate ribs, or what I like to call them, beefers. I ran the XT at 275 degrees, and for the smoke, we used some good old-fashioned post oak. These bones finished in 6 hours unwrapped, which is a tad faster than what they do in my offset. But I still got some awesome bark with a beautiful smoke ring, and these were juicy and tender. This, in my opinion, is when the XT really shines. With the charcoal and the wood combination, you pretty much have an authentic barbecue flavor. For my next test, it was all about to see how the Masterbuilt XT would perform when you were using it as a grill. The first one, it was a simple cook. We're gonna do up some burgers. And charcoal is my favorite type of fuel when it comes to grilling. So not only was I hoping that I'd get some good sear, I was banking on them burgers to be packing up some charcoal flavor. And you can see I certainly got some good sear. And these burgers were certainly bussin' with charcoal flavor. I'm talking yummy. Now the next night, it was all about some ribeye steaks. When it comes to testing any type of ribeye cooks on a grill, I make it really simple. I want to grill up a typical grocery store steak that you're gonna get on a weekday. Now these I ended up buying a packer and cut them out myself. I cut these all pretty much to a grocery store thickness because I want to cook them in 10 minutes and have them finished as close to a medium rare as possible. So I cranked the XT up to 700 degrees, the maximum temperature. And after After it reached that temperature, I gave the XT an additional 10 minutes really just to preheat up them grates. For the visual test, it passed. I got a really good, decent sear off those stainless steel grates. Now, if I would have thrown in a set of grill grates, I guarantee you I would have got one heck of a crazy sear. Once these steaks were done and rested for about 5 minutes, I sliced into them, and yes, I had a really nice medium to medium rare doneness. And let's talk about juicy. That cutting board looked like a swimming pool. Now let's talk a little bit about the creature comforts on the XT. We have 1,200 square inches of cooking space with this oven rack system. I really like how the top racks are half racks because it's easy to go ahead and adjust things. Maybe you just want to go ahead and throw a couple racks of ribs in the back, and here you have like a big old turkey. You have this really nice side shelf with 3 tool hooks and a paper towel holder. I use hand towel around here because it's a little sturdier, so it doesn't really fit on this exact, but you get the point. Like other Masterbuilt pits, this side shelf actually folds up. And underneath it, you have your pull bar. Now this pit moves really easy, so you can just use the side tray to move it around if you have to. You also have this nice little storage drawer. It's a great place to keep your probes. You have a nice bottom shelf if you want to store some of your cooking utensils underneath there. You know for sure I'm gonna love this. It has 4 rotating and 2 locking casters. With the shelf up, we have our grease storage bin, and through this trapdoor, you have your removable drip pan, which is so nice to be able to pull it out and clean it up with ease. We have a stainless steel front folding shelf too, which makes it really nice to lean on when you're cooking. I don't use a front shelf a lot, but I love it that it comes with it. We have an 18-pound hopper with latch sensors, which means when this is open, the fan is not going to kick on, so you don't have to worry about any temperature spikes or ash or a lot of sparks flying through the chamber. And this hopper does have some fire brick at the bottom of it. It is sealed and it has an adjustable latch, so as you use it, you can tighten it up so you don't get any smoke starting to smolder through the edge. I did see a little bit of that on my last cook at 700 degrees, but I don't think it'll be an issue if I'm running lower. Behind this door with a latch sensor also, we have our ash pan. Now before every cook, I take the ash can out and dump it. I make sure that it's been at least 24 hours before I dump it in anything that could be flammable. But if not, I have this old ash pan that I just dump it in there and store it until I know that it's 100% burnt out. And for the most part, the firebox on this XT is pretty good. Most of the ash has stayed inside the pan. The only time I've had some of the ash kind of fall out and hit the ground is when I'm grabbing that little fire rack at the bottom of the hopper and wiggling it around before I light it up. We have a Bluetooth and Wi-Fi controller. It goes from 150 all the way to a maximum of 700 degrees. Now you can set different types of alerts. You can set a temperature alert and a timer alert, both in the app and on the controller itself. This controller has 4 probe ports, but Masterbuilt sends you 2 probes. Again, there's 4 probe ports. Please send 4 probes. Put the probes back in this little drawer so we don't lose them. As far as the build quality on the XT, well, it is certainly bigger and beefier than any Masterbuilt that I've ever ran in the past. You got a little bit of double walled. You have a really nice gasket, which is great so that the smoke goes where it's supposed to, out the back, not just leaking all around the door. There isn't a lot of accessories that you can add to the Masterbuilt because it comes with most everything that you need. But one thing that I saw is that you can get a rotisserie for it. You just gotta screw off this little cap and there's a notch and that rotisserie will fit right on there. I'm not really sure if you have to mount something on this side or not, but one thing for sure is that you can get a rotisserie. And that's one thing I wish I had because we love rotisserie chicken and rotisserie prime rib. I mean, they just sit there and baste themselves and they're so dang good. When it comes to cleanup, it's pretty much like every single grill out there. Now, on the internal cooking components, you want to make sure that the pit is cooled down before you clean them up. But I just shut everything down and go ahead and start scraping off the grates. Once it's all cooled down, it's pretty simple. Just take out your grates, then take each one of those manifolds, scrape them down. Now you have to take off the grease catch before you go ahead and pull out the drip pan. But once you got all that out, scrape that drip pan down nice and then put it all back together. Now, one thing I wish that little grease catch had was some disposable liners for inside it. Now, they might make them, but I didn't see one. But I think that would be nice because it's just a little easier to clean that out if you want to, or even just take it out and throw it away and put in a new one. Having a little metal pan and having to stick your hand in there and glug it out is kind of a pain. One last best practice tip for you is if you have to add any fuel during the cook, is that you also pause the controller, and before you completely open up this lid, pop the hatch and slowly pick up the lid, because you could get some flame that'll come up through the top. And if you got the controller running, you're certainly gonna get a bunch of sparks. Some of the pros and cons on the Masterbuilt XT. Number one, it's obviously going to be the flavor on your food. Being able to cook with charcoal and wood is gonna amplify anything that you cook with flavor. Number two, being able to get a grill up to 700 degrees and have it stable is so nice when you're grilling. The temperatures didn't fall that much, even with me having the lid open and it only having about 2.5 minutes to get back up to temp. After that first initial drop of about 100 degrees, it stayed roughly right around 600 throughout that cook. Another pro that I talked about early is the build quality. It is pretty solid compared to any of the other Masterbuilt gravity fed cookers out there. Now let's talk about the cons. And because of the build quality, that pushes the cost of the XT up to almost double some of the other models, which ends up pushing you into the price range of some of the top brand pellet grills out there. But with the XT, I'm gonna say it's a better grill than a lot of the other pellet grills out there. Yes, we know there is a couple pellet grills out there that do a good job grilling, but the majority of the pellet grills are just smokers. This is a smoker and a grill. Another con about the XT, it's not waterproof. I know some of the past models have had issues with the water getting in the controller and wrecking that. And one of the biggest issues on the hopper itself is in time, after a lot of cooks, that hopper is gonna rust out. So my suggestion to get a little bit longer of a lifespan is buy a cover and keep it covered up. The last little minor con that I have is fuel consumption. You will burn more charcoal on this compared to like a Kamado. It's not the end of the world, but I do wish you could close it up tighter so it snuff out that fire quicker. I'm sure a lot of you are wondering out there, Ricer, what's your verdict? Well, it's pretty dang positive, and number one, because of the flavor. Masterbuilt has come a long ways from that original 560. This thing can cook and it's really reliable, especially when it comes to the upgraded controller. By far, that is Masterbuilt's best controller on the market today. I also love that the shelves, they're not accessories. You didn't have to go out and purchase them. They came with it. With 1,200 square inches of cooking space, it certainly can feed a large family. This is also a great option for any of you that like cook on a drum or a Weber kettle and you want some creature comforts. Well, 100% you know that the XT is gonna add a lot more creature comforts. Now, if you're looking for more information on the Masterbuilt XT, check the description below. But I appreciate you watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.